Got Adrian CG, the drone pilot from here in Monterey. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. So, what am I looking at? Where is it?
So that's the place where we saw the render.
Yes.
That whole area, it's where the main building should be.
Yes.
And it should probably end around where we see that area where we have the rancho.
Yes.
That's the first phase of the project.
Okay. It's so much steeper. I mean, this isn't bad, but this is not theirs, is it?
It is. So it goes all the way there. And
Right to the foothills, probably.
yeah, this area in the middle between the roads is also there.
Yes.
And that side.
It's so steep.
So this side is super steep. I don't think they are gonna build something in here until later on, like way, way later.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh.
So of the whole area, that's the part that it's less steep, but it still requires a quite good amount of work. And it makes sense to build there because you have the power substation over there, you have the train access from that side. You cannot bring the train all that uphill.
It's too steep?
It's too steep. So if
Because
they
that
make
was
it-
a question a lot of people had, is why don't they just
So if they make a train yard, it should be that all on that corner.
That's not too far. But any farther, you're saying, would be, it's getting too much.
It's too steep.
All right. All right. So now do we get up in the air?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we're good to go.
So we are out at the site of GIGA Nuevo Leon. How cool is that? I got Adrian CG, Adrian in the hat, in the car.
Hey,
Hey. And we just finished flying over the site, and I noticed a few things. One of them being that these hills are a whole lot closer than they look. Yeah, the hills are much closer. In my head, it was going to be this kind of flat. And it's not. It's really, really quite steep. What is the ground made out of?
pretty much solid rock.
Rock. It is rock. To get that level to build on it is going to be an undertaking. And they can excavate part and use it to fill the other part, but any way you slice it, it's going to be a lot of work. So the other thing to notice is that the land isn't just on one side of the freeway or on one side of two freeways. It stretches across the valley. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole valley pretty much belonged to Tesla for a few miles.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a good-sized chunk of land, as best we can tell. I think I'm the first YouTuber out here.
I think you are.
I think I am. If anybody else has been out here, apart from, Adrian, who lives here and is the reason I'm able to make this video, let me know. But I think even the professional analysts haven't been out to see what they're trying to assign value to, which is unsurprising, deeply disappointing. Considering the soil is also rocky, and it's also rocky in town, all the way from here to town.
Yes, it is. But pretty much the city is surrounded by mountains, so all the area you get rock right away.
Right away. If you look at the footage from outside, it's rock. The ground is rock. Some of it's rocky, some of it's just rock. That means the idea of boring tunnels in this area is probably not going to happen.
It's going to require a different kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
it would be like blasting.
Yes.
Yeah, even if you could make a cutter head that did it, which you can, they bored through, the Swiss Alps. It's slower and more expensive than other kinds of soil. But no, you could absolutely do it with a boring machine, but you lose a lot of the potential benefits. Another question people kept asking me is, are they going to put a train that runs right to the site?
There's a spur not far away that should be probably a few miles to connect it to the site. So it shouldn't be hard to...
Shouldn't be hard, and the land in between is not terribly in use.
It's mostly empty.
It's mostly empty, and that means that, but they can't bring it all the way to the top of the site.
And that is because the steepness of the terrain, it's too steep for a train.
Yeah,
coming here.
Trains require very small grades, otherwise they lose traction. Then you've got, and I don't know what the elevation is from sea level. But
yeah, probably a 2,000 meter.
Yeah, it's that high. That's well, but there are already rail lines that run from Monterey to the coast.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not an undertaking in that regard. Oh, I see. Now we're on the other highway. So the boundaries, I understand, are not easily determined.
They haven't disclosed the exact
footprint
of the train.
Yeah.
There's a non-disclosure agreement that Tesla has with the government. So
with the government?
Yes, so they cannot disclose.
Oh, that was so my next question was, is there a permit office you can go to, like they have in Texas, where Joe Tegmeyer, fantastic drone pilot, is able to just go in and say, hey, got anything new on Tesla? And they say, yes, sir. By law, we are required to show you.
It will require that they make the solicitations for the construction, which they have not. So we have nothing more than the permission for the change of from forest to industrial area.
Wow. And forest, I think, is a pretty generous term for what is on this, following a rainy period, of just a bit of scrub brush and grass. But, that's a technical differentiation, I suppose. Now, one thing I had gotten, a comment I'd seen a number of times that I tried to push back on was, the reason we haven't seen groundbreaking is because bureaucracy in Mexico delays at the permit office.
That's not for sure.
That's not a thing.
Not at all.
Because we now know that that's not the case. I said it at the time, but we now know for sure it's not the case, because Tesla is not pushing forward with the factory just yet. If they wanted to, it would be done. But and we also know that the governor, Governor Garcia,
Samuel Garcia, he's been pushing for the project since the beginning. He was doing all he could to bring the attention from Elon Musk to bring the factory here. So
the local government is absolutely behind it. And Samuel Garcia is the governor of Nuevo León, the entire state. So he has a little bit of pull, I imagine. And there are photographs of him and Elon together on multiple occasions. And the governor is the owner of the first Cybertruck in the whole country, I think.
Maybe for Nuevo León, he was the first. Because there's probably somebody in Tijuana who got one of those earlier or something
maybe.
like that.
Yeah, that's possible. So then you've got right here in this windy valley, they're not moving right now because it's not windy, a handful of wind turbines. So renewables are already here. And look at the size of this little switch yard here. That's pretty good. Are we seeing more wind power in Mexico?
There are a lot of wind and solar parks. The thing is, this present administration, they decided to stop using renewable energy, and they went to burn oil
Wow.
to generate the electricity. And that's because we only have one single company for oil extraction, that's Pemex, and they have a lot of waste that they can use to generate the electricity. So they're going that route. So many of the wind parks are either stopped or just working just if they are needed.
So that's stopped on purpose.
It is stopped on purpose. It's been like that for a few years now.
That's not good. So some reasons I wanted to discuss about why Monterey. So first of all, you've got a lot of modern industry here. Factory. It's a factory city.
Yeah, we have several factories. We have steel, glass, concrete, electronics.
Yeah,
as well.
electronics, car parts.
Yes, a lot of car parts.
Hyundai Kia factory. A whole factory.
They've been here for about 6 or 7 years now, probably a bit more.
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday, but there isn't a whole lot of cartel presence here. That's a comment I would see a lot of saying, oh, the cartels will ruin everything.
So it happens that for the state of Nuevo León, it's the borders are pretty much controlled. So the access of the cartels is really restricted, so they cannot get in here. It's usually quite secure to be in the roads here in Nuevo León.
And what about corruption at like the local level? Are you going to get shakedowns from anybody, are they going to ask for bribes to get your permit or?
That's not a thing that Nuevo León is known for.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed this. We have the owners of the biggest companies in Mexico here in Monterrey, so they don't like to deal with that kind of stuff.
So you've also got the proximity to the border is helpful.
2.5 hour drive from Monterrey.
So that means a lot of parts from here already go to Austin.
Yes.
And it means that finished vehicles here could go north of the border. But because Mexico has twice as many free trade agreements as the U.S., it means they can go to a lot of Latin America, to
Europe,
to Asia, because you're in the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
That's right. So we pretty much have agreements with over 150 countries. So whatever it's made here in Mexico can go pretty much all across the globe.
Pretty much anywhere. Now, there were people at the time screaming, "Stop the Trans-Pacific Partnership." And what they failed to understand is that you don't stop it, you just don't join it. The Trans-Pacific Partnership still happened. The U.S. just ain't part of it. We just gave up our seat at the table. Let's talk weather. Do you have extreme heats, extreme colds?
We get droughts for many years. Usually this is a hot place, so we get around 40 Celsius degrees in the summer. That's about 100, 105 Fahrenheit for...
So milder than Texas.
Yes, just like... yeah, it's quite close like to what you got in Austin. It's usually drier, and we get probably 30 days of rain in a year. So rain is rare.
Really rare. That's amazing. I've seen 2 of them, and I've only been here 3 days. So the water situation, now in Berlin, they have limited access to water. So they came up with some very innovative solutions to minimize their water use. And there's concerns that Monterrey doesn't have enough water. But something just happened recently. What was that?
So we got one tropical storm hitting this area, and that just was perfect because it filled the 3 main dams that we have. They're now pretty much full.
They're at the point where if there was no rain for 3 years, they would not run dry. But there will be rain over the next 3 years. It's cyclical. And this one factory, even if it's running at a normal consumption rate rather than a GIGA Berlin style lowered consumption rate, would not necessarily cause any problems.
It shall not. And actually, one of the agreements that Tesla had with the government is that they should use as much treated water as possible.
Oh yeah, yeah, gray water. Recycle it from themselves, reuse it, and that's in writing.
And that's it. That's in writing.
So that means they are going to go with the Berlin approach. Then you've got the power rates. Now, we looked this up during the drive up here. We found that while the U.S. has an average residential rate of 18 cents a kilowatt, and it's much higher in other parts of the world, in Mexico, the commercial rate, when using natural gas-fired electricity at least, because now we know why, these guys don't spin, is 4.1 cents a kilowatt hour. That's
cheap.
That's cheap. And it does take electricity to make cars, to run a factory, you guys. And then the last big one I wanted to talk about is, well, what about like engineering talent and an educated workforce?
Oh, that's a good question. So Monterey happens to have 3 of the top private universities. And that means that we don't need or have the need to import engineers. Actually, usually what happens is that Tesla comes in here once or twice a year and try to get the engineers from here to Texas and to Fremont.
Yeah.
So now with the factory here, many of those engineers are going to stay here.
I've seen people say, well, why doesn't the engineer who lives here just move there? Who cares? And part of the answer for a lot of people is, this is where I live.
Yes.
That's why Ford has so many operations in Canada, and GM as well, and Tesla, I think, has a Canada studio too, is because there are people who just don't want to move out of their country. I understand how that goes, especially if you've already got a family, or if your parents are sick, or if you just like where you live. Makes sense. All right, so guys, what other big questions are there that you have? I'm going to try and get this running while I'm still in town so that I can get better answers. But we've learned a lot today about the geography. It's very different than I expected. It doesn't look the same from the sky as it does on the ground. And any questions for Adrian? Awesome for hanging out. His links are in the description. You see his footage here from time to time. Yeah, what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? Leave it. Like, subscribe, do the usual. Stay tuned and juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots. Maybe when I get back home?